Welcome to Chicken Thigh Fishing. I'm going to show you the 8 baits that you need to go bass fishing. Stick around. Hey folks, Keith here at Chicken Thigh Fishing. Welcome aboard. Today we're going to talk about the 8 baits that you need for bass fishing. Now this is my tackle arsenal that I keep in my bass boat. And I'm somewhat of a tackle junkie and I buy all kinds of stuff all the time and I try out everything. But I'm here to tell you that you don't need a tackle arsenal like this to go out bass fishing, to catch a lot of fish, and to really enjoy yourself. If you're a beginning bass fisherman just getting into the sport, you don't need to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on tackle. There are a few baits that if you amass those in your tackle collection, you're going to be good to go for a long time to come. And so that's why I wanted to go over with you what I consider the staples of bass fishing. Shopping for tackle, especially when you're inexperienced, can be a little bit intimidating. I mean, you walk into stores and you see stuff like this, or this, or this, and you simply are intimidated as to what to choose and what's a good product and what configuration of a certain bait that you might want to use. I'm going to help you out here, and I'm going to list for you the baits that I think that if you put these in your tackle bag, you're going to be good to go. Number one, the number one bait for bass fishing that you want to keep in your tackle bag is a jig. Going bass fishing without a jig is like going to play baseball without a glove. You just got to have it. A jig is a versatile bait that you can fish in any kind of water, in any kind of cover, daytime, nighttime, wind, sun, rain, winter, spring, fall, summer, you name it, you can fish it and bass will hit it. So I'm going to show you the baits that I use and tell you why I use them, and I'll link them below in case you're interested in that particular kind. But I'm telling you, for every different kind of bait we talk about, there's 100 different manufacturers and there's 100 different configurations. So the choices these days are just limitless. So let's talk a little bit about jigs. There's a ton of different kinds of jigs. There's flipping jigs, there's swim jigs, there's football jigs, there's punching jigs. The jig that I use most is from Missile Baits, and it is called the flip out jig. And the reason I use this jig is because it's sturdy, it's strong, and I haven't bent a hook once on a fish on it. It comes with a very sturdy hook. Now a jig consists of a head, a skirt, a hook, and a weed guard. And you could throw a jig just like this out of the box, but generally what you'll see most bass fishermen do is put a soft plastic trailer on it. Now, when it comes to soft plastic trailers, if you walked into a store that sells fishing tackle, you would probably see rows and rows and rows of different kinds of soft plastic trailers. By no means is there only one type and one configuration to use. You just develop your favorite. Now my favorite is using a Strike King Rage Craw along with my flip out jig. And in order to attach that, all you do is go in the back end of the Rage Craw of your soft plastic trailer and then kind of just gauge how far you need to go down on the bait and come out with the hook in order for it to line up with the hook keeper here. So I'm going to go about, I don't know, halfway or so, and then I'm going to press that down onto the hook keeper. And this is what a typical jig would look like, with the jig itself and the soft plastic trailer. Now you throw this, you are going to catch bass. You can throw it out in the open, you can throw it in deep water, shallow water, grass, you can throw it at docks, into rocks, you name it. You throw a jig, you're gonna catch bass. Now jigs come, like most baits, in a ton of different weights. You can get a 1/4 ounce jig, a 3/8 ounce, a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce. You can get big, heavy punching jigs that weigh an ounce or more, so you can really toss them out and get them through vegetation, thick pads or mats, and you need that extra weight to get through there. You can buy big honking jigs. A lot of bass fishermen strictly use 3/8 or 1/2 ounce jigs. My go-to is a 3/4 ounce jig. I like them big, I like them heavy. This right here is a money setup, and you can catch fish all day on this. Of course, jigs come in 100 different colors. My favorite colors are green pumpkin type colors and black and blue. And of course, you can get soft plastic trailers to match any colored jig that you have. You don't only have to go with the Craw trailer. I often use a Rage Bug from Strike King. And again, there's just a ton out there, and you just got to try what looks right to you, what feels right to you, and then when you start catching fish on them, something's going to suddenly become your favorite. Now, the choices are limitless, but if you're just starting out, I would recommend going with a flip-out jig from Missile Baits, along with a Strike King Rage Craw trailer. You won't miss. Number 2. A bladed jig, otherwise known as a vibrating jig or a chatterbait. Now, just for clarification, a lot of people call these chatterbaits like I do, but chatterbait is actually a brand name from Z-Man. So the proper term for what people call a chatterbait is a bladed jig or a vibrating jig. And what it is basically a jig, a head, a skirt, and a hook with a blade on it, that when you retrieve this through the water, that blade thumps and vibrates. Arguably one of the best, most effective, most consistent baits in bass fishing. You can use them day and night, any season, any type of water, any depth of water, and you catch fish on them. And it's fun to catch fish on chatterbaits because bass just destroy them. You get hits on chatterbaits that just about pull your rod out of your hand. They really go after them. So number 2 on the list is a chatterbait. There's 100 different brands, there's 100 different configurations, there's 100 different colors. So you just got to go with what you end up trying and what you end up liking. Now for me, it's the Project Z Chatterbait from Z-Man. I've tried many different chatterbaits, and I always go back to this for the majority of my chatterbait fishing. They have very sturdy hooks, they hold up well, and I catch multiple fish on one before I have to retire it. Now you can fish a chatterbait as is out of the box, and you will catch fish on it. However, most people, including myself, use a soft plastic trailer. And when it comes to soft plastics, I'm telling you, there is just a million kinds of them. So I'm going to tell you what I use. More often than not, I use a Yamamoto Zako, which is a 4-inch soft plastic trailer shaped like a minnow. And I'll tell you what, the combination of a Yamamoto Zako and a Project Z Chatterbait has put hundreds and hundreds of fish in my boat. Now, I'm not saying that it's more or less effective than any other chatterbait, because there's many more that I haven't tried than those that I have tried. I'm just telling you that this catches fish. So if you're a beginner and you're looking for effective lures, you cannot go wrong with a Project Z Chatterbait and a Zako trailer. Now, Zakos come in all different colors. They come in probably 12 or 14 different colors that you can match up with the color of your chatterbait itself. And they also come with a fan tail or with a boot tail if you're looking for a little bit more thump. Now, I don't exclusively use Zako trailers. There are also swim bait type trailers that you can use, and I often use Keitech Fat Swing Impact or Strike King Rage Swimmer, which again come in every conceivable color you could find that will match up with your chatterbait. So again, it's just a matter of personal preference and what you use. I would suggest trying out a couple of different types when you're starting off fishing and see what you have success with and what feels better to you. Now, thump is the name of the game with a chatterbait. When you cast a chatterbait, when you retrieve it, you're going to feel that thump. It's going to vibrate all the way through your line, and that's what attracts the fish to it. Along with the color and the motion is that thumping, vibrating action that is created by the blade. Now, when you look at different chatterbaits, you're going to see all kinds of different configurations of blades, and you'll see different kinds of materials. You can have metal, you can have plastic. I also use big blade chatterbaits from Z-Man, and the bigger blade gives you bigger thump. Now, Z-Man makes about a dozen different models. They have all kinds of different configurations. You can get them weedless, where they come with a weed guard, so that helps you a little more if you're dragging through vegetation. You can get them with swivel heads, where they swing, where it's not, the head isn't fixed to the hook, and you get a little bit of swing to them. There's all kinds of configurations, and just like anything else these days, there's just so many variations on the original. You can get multiple weights, 3/8 ounce, ½ ounce, 3/4 ounce. You can get 1 ounce and 2 ounce chatterbaits if you really want to go out deep, say in a reservoir, and get down in that water column or down on a ledge. But by and large, more often than not, you're going to use a 3/8 ounce, a ½ ounce, or a 3/4 ounce. I use most of the time a big 3/4 ounce chatterbait. So it just depends on your style of fishing, and when you're a beginner, you're developing that style of fishing. But one thing you shouldn't develop is waiting to use a chatterbait. If you want to catch bass, go get yourself a couple of chatterbaits. So that's number 2. Next up at number 3 is probably my personal favorite, a spinnerbait. Now, a spinnerbait is one of the most versatile baits out there. And like most of the baits I'm going to discuss with you today, one of the reasons that I think they're staples for bass fishing is you can fish them in any type of water, in any condition, day, night, and any season. If you told me I had one bait I could use for the rest of my days, one bait and one bait only, I would choose a spinnerbait. That's how versatile they are. They just simply catch fish. They come in a ton of different configurations, and there are innumerable combinations of the blades that come on spinnerbaits. They come in different colors, they come in different shapes and sizes, they come in mixed configurations. For instance, this one has 2 different size Oklahoma type blades. You have Oklahoma blades, you have willow blades, you have Colorado blades, there are Indiana blades. There are all kinds of different funky shaped blades now that give a little bit different flash and a little bit different vibration in the water. And it's the flash and the vibration in the water of the blades that get that bass's attention. You can fish them slow and deliberate. You can burn them through the water and fish them really fast on a high gear ratio reel. Probably the most popular weights folks use with spinnerbaits are 3/8 ounce and ½ ounce. Again, much like chatterbaits, I go for the bigger ones. Probably the size spinnerbait that I use most is a big honkin' 3/4 ounce with a 3.7 inch Rage Swimmer trailer. This particular spinnerbait is one from Rocky Ledge Tackle, and they come in about, well over a dozen different colors and patterns. Money right there. I'm telling you. Money lure. You can get big honking ones like this one from Grim Reaper Lures. It's a 2 ounce version that gets way down in the water column and way down on ledges if you want to dig them up. There's just so many configurations that you can get. But fishing a spinnerbait is just one of the most effective ways to bass fish. You can bring them through grass or over the top of grass. You can run them through pads. You can fish them over rocks. Just a very, very effective bass fishing bait. You can fish them with or without a soft plastic trailer. Some of my favorite trailers to use on spinnerbaits are Rage Swimmers from Strike King, or this Largo Shad from Storm is another one of my favorites. The combinations and the choices are limitless. But one thing is for sure, if you're going to go out bass fishing, you're going to want a few spinnerbaits in your arsenal. You don't have to spend big money on spinnerbaits. I'll tell you what, if you were to only get 2 and you're starting out as a bass fisherman, you can go right down to your local Walmart. This right here is a Sexy Shad burner spinnerbait, 1/2 ounce from Strike King, and I have probably caught more fish on this individual lure than any other lure I've ever used. And you get it right down at Walmart. Again, for about $5 or $6 at Walmart, you can pick up the Strike King Midnight Special, and it comes in red and black or blue and black, and it comes with a Colorado blade for a little bit of extra thump. Can't even tell you how many fish I've caught on this lure. Now, you can also get spinnerbaits in every conceivable color pattern there is. And you know, people have luck on different colors, and when you catch fish on a certain color, you tend to lean towards that color. If you go out and pick up yourself a Sexy Shad color, a black and red, and chartreuse and white, those 3 colors day or night will hit, and you will catch fish. Now, if you want to know more about spinnerbaits and more about the intricacies and the techniques used to fish them in a little bit more in-depth form, then tune into our other fishing videos where you'll see me use spinnerbaits quite a bit. But just from a basic standpoint, this is what a spinnerbait is, and you need to have some spinnerbaits in your tackle bag if you're going out bass fishing. You will not be disappointed. Spinnerbait, gotta have it. Next up is a crankbait. If you're going bass fishing, bring a crankbait. Several different kinds, like every other bait. Crankbaits are a staple of bass fishing. You can get them from the very small to very large. All kinds of different weights, all kinds of different color patterns, and they're just something you want to have in your arsenal when it comes to bass fishing. You can fish them shallow or deep. Usually on the package, when you get a crankbait, it'll tell you how deep they go in the water column. Crankbaits generally have 2 treble hooks, and most crankbaits have a spoon or a bill on the front. And the size and the shape and the length of that bill determines the depth that they travel in the water. You can have a shallow fishing crankbait with a small bill like this, or you can have one that's designed to go deeper in the water column. This is an XD6 from Strike King, and this will go pretty near 20 feet down in the water column. Or you may have my personal favorite, a hybrid hunter that has a 90-degree angle on the bill, and you're going to fish this in about 2 to 5 feet of water. Super, super effective. So in addition to having your classic shaped crankbait, you can get different shapes, like a lipless crankbait that does not have a bill on the front, and it's skinnier and flat and flutters through the water. You'll hear people refer to these as rattle traps. A lot of them come with rattles. Create sound during your retrieve to attract fish, and you can cast it a country mile, get it down in the water. You can retrieve it fast or slow, and because of the distance that you can cast it and the depths you can get it to, you can just cover an awful lot of water looking for bass with these. You can also find hybrid type crankbaits. This crankbait here is by Molix, and it's a soft body crankbait. It's got a hard front, but it's got a soft body like a hollow body frog, and it's actually got a frog hook on it as opposed to the treble hooks that come on most other crankbaits. Now, one of the drawbacks of crankbaits, of course, is that you got big treble hooks on there, and it tends to pick up grass and things like that. So you could get a hybrid type crankbait like this with a frog hook on it, and I absolutely love this bait. You can pull this through grass and pads effortlessly because of that frog type hook, and you don't have the 2 treble hooks hanging down. when you're going through the list of must-have baits for bass fishing, crankbaits are right in there. You may want to pick up a couple different kinds. If I were to recommend 2 to start with, I would absolutely recommend this pattern in a red-eyed shad on a lipless crankbait. I would recommend the Strike King Hybrid Hunter for shallow water situations in any color that they have. And I would recommend any rock crawler type that you can get between the 2 and 10 foot range when it comes to bass fishing. If you're looking for deep water crankbaits, let's say you fish a lot of times in 20 foot or more of water, or you're in reservoirs, or you're fishing down ledges and stuff, the Strike King XD series comes in a number of different sizes. You have the XD3 all the way up to the XD10. They will get way down in the water column with these spoons, and I use these quite a bit and get down there, and when you can get down there and get those suspended fish, or those fish that are sitting on ledges way down deep that you otherwise can't reach with a shallow water crankbait, you run one of these by them, especially something like a chartreuse or a oyster or white color down deep where it's not so much light penetrates, you're going to dig up some big fish from down deep with a deep water crankbait. So if you're a beginner, make a spot in your tackle bag for a few crankbaits. Next up, we're moving to topwater. If you're going out bass fishing, you need to bring some frogs. Topwater blow-ups, man, doesn't get any better than that. Now, it's funny, when I field questions from people who don't have that much experience bass fishing, they often ask questions about topwater fishing and things like frogs. More often than not, I hear people say things like, do bass really hit those? Well, let me tell you something. Largemouth bass and smallmouth bass are voracious, vicious predators. And you don't have to fish for a long period of time until you realize that. Topwater fishing is awesome. Those bass come up and they smash things on the top of the water. They will hit a lizard, they will hit a snake, they will hit a frog, they'll hit a duck, they'll hit a beaver, they'll hit a rat. They'll hit anything you throw out there. You get a hungry enough bass out there, you could throw a tennis shoe out there and he'll hit that. A bass will eat anything that can fit in its mouth. So when you see those big honking funky topwater lures, believe me when I tell you, they will hit them. And the world of hollow body frogs is veritably endless out there in the tackle world today. There are so many different configurations that you can get, and they are all equally effective. I tend to gravitate towards a few certain types. My favorite is the Molix Supernato frog, and it has these replaceable legs on them, and they flutter in the water, and they kick up water and make a racket, and man, I just kill them on this. And it comes in multiple different colors that you can purchase replaceable legs for when these ones get beat up, which they will. You can get frogs that have lifelike looking legs. More often than not, you'll see tassel type, skirt type legs on frogs. And if you're bass fishing, this is just one of those things you got to have, especially if you're in an area that has a lot of garbage in the water. When you can't fish a crankbait or something with treble hooks on it because the vegetation is too thick, you want to go to your topwater and go into those pads and into that heavy grass and into those mats and things. You can throw a frog on top of vegetation that you pretty much couldn't drop a rock through, and there'll be bass under there, and they will come up and get your frog. As far as technique goes and what gear to use as far as line and rods and reels, tune into our other videos and you'll get some good information on that. But as far as general information goes, if you're going out bass fishing, get yourself some frogs. Okay, we're going to stay with the topwater theme for the next one on my list of baits that you must have if you're going after big bass. And that is the Whopper Plopper. Now, when these came out, I was a little bit skeptical because I had never used a lure like this before. It didn't take me long to become a believer, and I've got a whole bunch of them. They come in different sizes, from big ones to medium ones to small ones, and they come in multiple different patterns, and these lures flat out catch big fish. And the blow-ups that you get on the top water when you catch fish on these can be epic. Super fun to fish a Whopper Plopper. You can cast them a long way. You can cover a lot of water. And man, again, I'm just a big fan of topwater fishing. You fish a Whopper Plopper, you're going to get some serious blow-ups. These float on the top of the water, and the prop spins when you retrieve it, and it moves a whole bunch of water when it does that. And it makes a very distinctive, loud, plopping sound, and it just brings those bass up from deep. And they come up, and I've had big bass come clear out of the water smashing one of these things. I do a lot of nighttime fishing, as you know from my videos, and I'll tell you what, a Whopper Plopper at night, ooh doggy, you're gonna catch some fish. There's a ton of different colors to choose from. My favorite is the perch pattern, but I also like the black loon pattern, and I like the white. There's not one I don't like. As far as I'm concerned, you can't go wrong. If I'm starting out, I might get a couple different patterns and a couple different sizes. Maybe a small one and a large one, and maybe one in a dark color pattern and one in a light color pattern that you can switch off if one isn't being effective at a certain time. I can't say enough about Whopper Ploppers. Different companies make their different versions of them, like the Berkeley Chopo and things like that. But the River to Sea Whopper Plopper is, I guess, the original Whopper Plopper. I don't know, but I'll tell you what. Put a couple of these in your box and hold on. Next up is another money lure and another topwater lure. You want to get yourself a walking bait. This is a hard body topwater bait, usually with a rattle inside it. And what these do is exactly what it sounds like. They walk on the top of the water. You use a twitching motion on your retrieve, generally. I mean, you can use any kind of motion you want, and they're still effective, but ideally, if you use a twitching motion on your retrieve, these will walk back and forth and zigzag across the water, and boy, do they just bring up the fish. This one in particular, in this pattern, is the one that I've caught more fish on than any other, and this is a Pencil 110 from Duo Realis. It's got a very distinctive sound. When you twitch that in the water, that rattle hits and makes an echo through the water. And this color in particular, I've hit a million fish on. And again, top water is a productive way to catch bass. And if you include a spook or any other type of walking bait in your tackle bag, believe me when I tell you, you're gonna catch fish on it. Gotta have it. And last, but by no means least, are soft plastic Texas rigged baits. Now, when it comes to Texas rigging any soft plastic bait, the important part is the hook you use and how you rig it. You're generally either going to use an offset hook or an extra wide gap offset hook in order to rig up a soft plastic and Texas rig it. What you're going to do when you Texas rig a soft plastic is, more often than not, you're going to put a worm weight, a bullet type weight on your line. Then you're going to tie on an offset hook that has this offset neck on it. You're going to go through the top of your bait, just about the length of that offset section on the hook, and then come through. And what that's going to allow you to do is bring that bait up onto the neck of the hook, and then put your hook into the bait, and now you have the hook in a weedless configuration into your bait, or just barely skimming out and coming out the top of it. And that is a Texas rigged soft plastic. And it doesn't have to be a worm, although a 10-inch swirl-tail worm is my absolute favorite. You can use any type of soft plastic, like a brush hog or a creature bait like this. There are hundreds of kinds of soft plastics, but if you use a Texas rigged soft plastic with or without a weight, and you bump these along the bottom, you're going to catch bass. So Texas rigging soft plastics is last on my list, but by no means last in importance. So there you have my list. Now, the reason I only listed 8 was because I could probably go up to about 100, because I love every piece of bait there is out there. But if I'm telling you as a new bass fisherman a short list of baits that I would want to have in my tackle bag that I could fish in any given situation, any season, any weather, any water clarity, any water depth, that's the list I would give you based on my experience in bass fishing. Now, you'll get other opinions out there, and God bless you. I encourage you to go get different opinions and to try out as many different things as you can. But if you're working on a budget and you don't want to have 50 different baits in your tackle bag and you want to kind of keep it consolidated, go with these 8 baits that I showed you and you won't go wrong. I guarantee you will catch some fish. So if you're a new bass fisherman, I hope this video was a help to you. I'm going to link all the products that we talked about in here below so you can take a look at those particular ones. But I would also encourage you to go out and just hunt on your own and look for things. Everybody develops their own favorites, their own favorite brands, their own favorite configurations, and their own favorite colors. So go out there and have at it. But if you need a little bit of a guide to go to where to start, I hope this served that purpose for you. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, we thank you for being a part of Chicken Thigh Fishing. Hey, we'll see you next time. Stay fishing, my friends.